troubles. And the way we fix all those troubles is we take them back to this spot. This spot right here, for some horses, is the hardest spot in the world to find. It's called soft, quiet, and relaxed. And if you can get that, you can teach them anything. But if you can't get this spot, you're going to have a lot of trouble teaching them anything. And the way we teach that, it's one of the first things that we teach them as soon as we can keep them away from us a little bit so they don't hurt us, is I just flip this string over their backs until they stop and think. The little horse is thinking, reward that. Just take your time. Worst thing in the world you can do with especially a young horse is be thinking about what you're going to do a year from now. You need to be thinking about what you can do right now, this instant. Now, everything that we do on the ground is exactly like we're going to do it on the saddle. Every button that we use, every body part we break loose will be just exactly like the saddle work. So when you sit on their backs, they're already doing this stuff. Okay? That being said, first things that we do, teach the little horse to go when we ask. Pretty simple. And I can push her out, push her rib cage out, keep her away from me. Relaxed and soft. Now, never take the forward motion and never take the life out of these horses. Don't get after her. If she has to go fast, let her. We're going to modify that behavior. And the way we're going to modify it, it's called working with them first. Before a horse can work with you, you got to work with it. She's moving around here quite a little bit. And when the tractors get out to where she can hear me talk, now maybe so I'll do one rein stop. That might come in handy when you're riding. And you always pull to the same place your hip is going to be if you're sitting on their back. It doesn't make any sense to pull down low. When you sit on their back, you're going to pull up high. Pull to your hip bone. If you pull to your hip bone, it'll be just exactly when you climb on her back like it was when you rode her, when you worked her on the ground. She should go off with my suggestion. If I point, she should go. Now maybe, if I could get the hip broke loose by just looking at it and not pulling on her, that would even be better than a one rein stop. What I'm doing here is I'm putting pressure on this hip with my intentions. And if she doesn't listen to me, I'll use my stick. Somewhat like you would if you were riding and you asked for something and you didn't get it, you might escalate the aids. And you'd be within your rights as long as you're fair about what you're asking. Now we'll send her the other way. Off my feel. This halter is a hackamore. No different. It works, you know, thousands of years ago when the Indians started riding, they didn't know that you could braid stuff together. So they just used a string. Well, that's more than a string, it's a lot more substantial, but it feels on the horse's head exactly the same as a hackamore. So if I touch this horse on the right jaw, that should mean move to the left, and it does. Or vice versa. And I ought not to have to pull her. I should be able to just send her. Right there, I'm touching that jaw on the right, and I'm not getting anything. So I might put a little pressure on that shoulder and send it away. You don't have to get wild with them. You have to work with them. Take the life that they offer and modify it. Now we're going to do that one rein stop on this side. There's my hip bone right about there, and there's that one rein stop, and she's not bothered. I might even go back here and rub her. And since my intention has changed, my results have changed. I want her to stand still. So my body language says stand still, relax. She moved. That's just her telling me that she had to. I'm not going to get mad at her. I'm either going to put her to work a different way or do what I was doing until she stands still again. Now we got that one rein stop on this side, just like the other side. And if you have to pull on them more than the weight of the rope, you're pulling too hard. You just touch them. Now maybe my intentions will change and I don't want her to stop, I want her to move that hip. Believe it or not, that's the beginning of lead departures, lead changes. It's also teaching them to not be afraid of you. None of this stuff should scare them. If you scare them, horses don't lie. We've decided that. And if your horse gets on the muscle and starts jumping around and going crazy, you gave him too much information. You got too big. If I run in here and scare my horse, I'm not making my horse better. But if I set something up and wait for a correct result, I can stay light. And if I can stay light, they'll never be heavy. Never. See how she's telling me she'll do anything I want her to do. Horses don't lie. They don't have the capabilities to lie or think abstractly. A horse cannot plan his revenge for tomorrow. And some people think that my horse is just waiting for me to show up so I can be mean to her, or whatever. Horses can't think abstractly. Another thing that a horse can't do is plan on how it's going to go when the rain is. It can't. It does. A horse lives in the moment. And if you don't work with the horse in the moment, you're not going to have much success. If my life stops, the horse stops. Simple as that. Working with these horses is a lot different than making them mind you. We don't make horses mind us. We give them suggestions, we wait for the proper response, and then we take the pressure off. This horse This horse was last year's in-hand trail champion in Idaho. She had a sore left leg. I was going to start her in January, but she had a sore left leg, so I turned her out for the winter. She hasn't been caught. She hadn't been caught 5-6 months. She's just as fresh as a daisy. But look at this. My life is saying, be quiet. Because I've worked with what she's had to offer me so far. She's looking around, she's checking stuff out, but she knows what this feels like. So maybe I can have her check in with me and not make it a big deal. And there's the reward, see? This whole deal of working with these horses is about having them be with you. Soft, quiet, and relaxed. The best place in this whole arena is right next to me. That being said, we'll do something different. I'll send her, put a little pressure on because she wasn't listening. And they're just horses. They're not going to listen all the time. Don't be rude, just snatch at them. All right, we got the hip, didn't we? Well, maybe I could add the shoulder to that. Oh, and give her a go. If she wants to move, let her. Don't take the life out of her. Take what they offer and modify it. Now maybe so we'll turn it the other way. We'll disengage and we'll move the shoulder. Oh, pretty soft. I stuck my stick out there. But I didn't have to. I just wanted her to try a little harder, but a little harder. I didn't stick that stick up there and smack her. I just wanted her to try a little harder because I am human and I was showing off. A little bit of hip, a little bit of shoulder. And if you can do it at the walk, you're obviously going to be able to do it at the canter, the trot. But if you can't do it at the walk, when they run off with you, you're a done deal. They'll go to Cuna. It's as simple as that. If you don't have this bend working for you, they will take you where they think they need to go. All right, so we're going to work on that shoulder for just a second. There, that's a pretty nice pivot. That pivot will be the same when you ride them. No different. All of this groundwork exactly the same as the saddle. The only thing is the buttons are underneath instead of above, but the buttons are the same. Maybe we'll see if we can get a pivot on this side. Bring that shoulder through and step it across. Oh, she kicked out, but she got a quarter of the way. We'll reward the try. And her reward is getting stopped. Pretty simple to reward them. Just quit doing what you're doing.
Mark, I can solve that if somebody over by that speaker will just turn it that direction.
Now, if we've got a little bit of that kind of control, we should be able to have that same control standing next to them. And here's how you soften them up while you're sitting on their backs. No different. But if you can't get this close to your horses,
thank you. Mark, there you go.
It might take you a while, because this scares them at the beginning. Maybe we'll step this horse across and do it on this side. Same exercise, only with no forward motion. This side here, she's telling me she's a little more bothered. And just because you're being soft and light, doesn't mean you can't be a good leader. If she'd have bit me, I'd have bumped her in the mouth. As hard as necessary. It might have been terrible hard. Might have been real light. But I will not let them touch me. Only rule I have. They can never touch me. Ever. A horse can never touch me. But I can touch them anytime I want. We're partners. But I'm the managing partner. Trust me on that. Because they ain't very long and they outweigh you by 1,000 pounds, and if they touch you, they might touch you too rough. So maybe as we're working on these body parts, there's an underlying theme with this. I let this horse find the stop. I take the pressure off, the horse finds the stop. Everything that I'll do with these horses, I'll ask them for some movement, and then I'll let them find the stop. They have got to know how to stand still and relax. This has got to be the best part of their day. No different than standing under a shade tree. And believe me, if you turn this horse loose, it wouldn't hang out with you. It'd go eat some grass and shade up when it got hot and get a drink when it got thirsty. If it saw you and it liked you, it might come up to you. Maybe. Just depends if you're more important to the horse in his environment. So your job when you're working with these young horses is to make being with you the most important part of their day. Now we're going to get a lot done here in a short amount of time, but every time I let this horse rest, there's a reason for it. Maybe I'll block this horse and push this horse's shoulder over and send this horse up here. Now, I've pivoted it on. I'm going to work on that shoulder just a little bit more. This will be exactly how I ride him when I teach the turnaround. My inside leg's on her belly. Since I'm standing on the ground, it's my hip. Or my stick, if you want to call that. That's my inside leg. This horse is going forward around my inside leg. when it's right and I can see both ends, maybe so I'll just step in here and pivot this horse around. When I ride that horse the first time, that's how I'm going to turn it around. Just exactly like that. Try the other side. And you have to get step 1 perfect before you go to step 2. Otherwise, you're not going to get it done. That's good enough. Now, we got the shoulder. We got the hip. More important than that is we got the mind. Maybe so on this horse's first ride, those are the only 2 body parts I have to have. I might ride this colt the first time just exactly like we're doing right now. I'll climb on her back, let her trot. Making that little circle. There. If you'll notice what I'm doing here is I'm letting her move out. I'll take the pressure off and let her walk. Now I'll put some pressure on, let her move out. Now I'll take the pressure off and let her walk. We build her up, bring her back down. Now if I have troubles on the first ride, since I start everything by myself, I don't have anybody in the middle of the pen. But since we got this part done, put some pressure on her, she gets too wild, yield that hip, and step that shoulder across. Yield that hip, and step the shoulder across. Send her out. My hand is the same as my inside leg, because that's where I'm standing. So I can put pressure there or take it off, purely with my intent. She's not paying attention to me, so maybe I should give her something harder to do. I'm going to refine this and make her look in. I'm going to stand her up and make her look at me. There. 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 Now I'm going to ride her down here on the ground. With one rein, I'm going to slow her down to a walk. With one rein, I'm going to stop her, but I'm going to try to keep her straight just by adding pressure. Put some bend into that. There. Now I'm working on 2 ways to stop her if she runs off. I can pick up with one rein and stop her. It's not all going to be perfect, but as long as she understands the concept, we're good. Build on it. Now let her go around this way. Let her move out. Make her look. I very seldom do liberty work until they'll look at me. So right here I can work on her looking in and standing up straight. Push that rib out, make that face come in. Stay with me. Ah! If she'll stay with me on the ground, she'll stay with me when I ride her. But if she's afraid of me on the ground, you climb on her back, it'll just scare her forward. Now I'll put some pressure on her and let her move. Make her look. Bring her back down. Bend her, but try not to disengage the hindquarters, because we're working on a different thing, aren't we? Another way to stop. Okay. Next thing I'll teach them, we kind of have it already. Just stay with me. If I can get these horses to stay with me, then I don't have to worry about them running off and selling out. If I back up, they back up. She's not listening. Oh, she's starting to. I'll help her. You ought not to be pulling on these horses. It's got to be their choice. If you can't stay soft and light, your finished product's going to be heavy and dull, I promise you. We'll walk around here, and I'll give her another test. I want her neck on my shoulder. When I was a buckaroo, I wanted her to walk 15 feet behind me. I've changed. If I stop, they stop. She's too far ahead of me, so fix the stop, reward the spot, make her focus. Maybe so back up. Pretty light. And she's choosing to be light, but I'm choosing to handle her lightly. And then you can refine it. I like them to eventually follow this free hand. Fix it, make it correct. Just remember that a try is worth one heck of a lot more than a jerk or a snatch or a pull. Remember how this halter is just a hackamore? That feel on her nose is going to be the same her whole life. So maybe I'm touching her here. There's no sense in jerking harder. Maybe I'll help her down here. And just reward the softness. When she drops her head, she's soft. When a horse backs up and they drop their head, they're lifting their backs. When a horse backs up and they lift their head, they're getting hollow, dragging their feet. We want correct, but we're not going to drill on them or abuse them to get correct. We're going to reward them for trying. So maybe I'll put a little pressure on that nose and add something somewhere else. So this means something to her. There, she's lifting her back and backing up. We chip away at that until it's nice. Okay? All of this stuff that we do, don't get in a hurry to get it done. I can't stress that enough. Because if you get in a hurry to get it done, they won't want to be with you even when they see you out in the pasture. Because you're no fun, you're evil, you're abusive. And this thing feels the same to them no matter where you're standing. That's the beauty of this rope halter and the hackamore. We'll put the first 10 rides on them with the halter, and then we'll ride them for another couple of weeks with Bozell. And they don't even know what a bit feels like. They don't need to know what a bit feels like at that point. Ask her to move. Maybe so with just my body. Ask her to stop. Now she looked at me. I'm going to reward that. But really what I wanted her to do was stop out here. Soft and just quit. Like that. I wanted her to be comfortable enough with me being in her world that if I just stop moving, she stops moving. That's going to help me out when I sit on her back and I put a little leg pressure on her maybe, and then I take that pressure off. She'll make the connection pretty fast if I take the pressure off to stop. So maybe so I'll just stand here for a minute. She's telling me that she can't stop. I add a little pressure right there maybe. Just a little. She's still telling me that she can't find that stop. That's okay. I'm not going to jerk harder. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get over in a place where she can't walk. Maybe I'll block her. Just like her mama would. But see, I stepped up those age twice. I relaxed. Then I wiggled the rope. And I blocked her. There's no sense and there's no room for a jerking on them. That just gets them to protecting themselves. And you have to learn to maybe listen to them a little bit. Because the horse was telling me the truth. It couldn't find the stop. So I stepped over there and let it find the stop, and then I scratched it for it. KISS means trot, and as we pick up this quality of performance, as we get further down the line, we will ask for more precise results, more precise performance. But when they're young like this, all we want to try, just to try. That's what keeps them quiet. This is called just beating them to a stop. But it lets them know what they think of your tools, doesn't it? If you've been using this thing for abuse, maybe so when you started doing this, the horse would just get scared and run off. But if the horse is standing there like that, you're on the right track. I do this with all of the horses that we're re-educating. Everything from event horses to horses that's giving people a ton of trouble. You'd be surprised how long it takes some horses to stop while you're flipping the string over their back. I've seen it take 2 or 3 hours. I've had people come out to the house, they take all the pressure off their horse, and their horse continues to trot for 2.5 hours. Just sitting up there. It's because the horse can't find the spot. And every time we do something that requires movement, we're going to let them come back and find the spot. Now we haven't worked on backup at all, really. There's a couple of things we haven't worked on. These are all things that these little horses have got to do before they're even educated enough to teach them anything. These are just basic. These are what I do when I wean colts. This is exactly the program that I put the weaning colts on. They have to do all of these things before I can even turn them out as weaners. Okay? So we haven't stepped her up very far today. That's all right. She hadn't been caught in 5 or 6 months. She's pretty fresh. She'd probably run and fart, jump and kick if we turned her loose now. But now we're going to get a little closer to her. I have the hip and I have the shoulder. Next step is get the belly. When you ride them the very first time, they'll slide past 6 feet because they know how to break that belly loose. Fix the hip. When the hip is square with the face, well, it only has to be a step at the beginning. You don't need that. But this is, we got the hip, we got the rib cage. That's a flying lead change where I grew up. Push that hip over. There's your lead to the right. You have got to get them to engage. When a horse bends through the rib cage, that's a left lead. When a horse pushes the rib cage this way, even if you're counter-cantering, all you do is change leads, that's the right lead. But we get these parts broke loose. So we'll work on her belly some more. I'll send her through here where it's tight. This is how I teach them to get on the trailer, cross bridges, hit trail obstacles, it don't matter. Hit the shoulder, put the pressure on the rib cage. It's not perfect, but the rib cage moved. That's all I was interested in. Be in such a hurry. Make this deal easy and soft for them. Pressure on the rib cage. When they get square, work that. Then, maybe, as they understand the concept of moving both of those body parts at the same time, maybe I can ask for a little face, ask for a little hip, and ask for a little rib cage. Ah! Nice and soft. She's not bothered. She's licking her lips. So I got a baby horse here, don't even have its first ride on it yet. That'll bend its face, yield its hindquarters, and move its belly. Looks like it could be a pretty safe ride, even if it jumped in, kicked, and ran off. If you've got your groundwork done, they won't jump, they won't kick, they won't run off, they'll just bend the part you ask. But if you don't have these body parts broke loose, and you put a leg on there to move it, it might jump, kick, and run off. That's the whole point of putting the pressure on these body parts. We'll try the other side. And yeah, I got a stick. I got this at Stack's Tack Shop in Middleton, Idaho. I think it cost me $8 or $9. I'm not endorsing nobody, but everybody is handy. Fix that hip. When I get a straight step, remember. So I showed her to move the hip to catch up to her face. Now I'm going to ask her to take a straight step. And I'm not going to be in a hurry. I'm going to stand her up here, set her up so she can be a success. Better. Now the shoulder's dragging, so we'll work on the shoulder. But you can see where we're going with this. Usually when a horse side passes, they drag their hip, and we work on the hip. So when I side pass baby horses, I always make them take an extra step with their hip. Then I have to go in and fix the shoulder, but that's pretty easy. Forward motion. There it is. Rewarder. So far, we've been chipping away at this for a little bit. I got the face. I got the neck. I got the rib cage. I got the shoulder. I got the hip. I also have forward motion and stop. If we chipped away at this for 2 weeks, I'll be ride her to your house. Because she's never been scared yet, because she hasn't gave me no reason to scare her. When she is looking at the neighbors over there, just took my time and brought her back to me. Now when you ride her the first time, maybe there'll be somebody getting bucked off in the other arena. But maybe you just reach down and pick up on her, and she'll come back to you. And what they're doing means nothing to her, because she's back with you again. That's the whole part of getting them with you. You get them with you, then you can modify that behavior into quality performance. And a real good, like I said, I don't believe in liberty work, but I do liberty work. I do it as a test. You know what you get when you take the halter off one of these horses or take the bridle off of them? Nobody? What do you get? Ah, you get the truth. If this horse doesn't want to be with me, she's going to tell me right quick, isn't it? Then that's going to make me either feel like a success or a failure, isn't it? Most human beings are afraid to put themselves out there to get criticized for being a failure. I'm old enough now where I'm in the deal for the horse. I don't care what people think. So, that being said, I've spent the last bit of my life trying to listen to what they have to say, letting the horse be my teacher, because all of my heroes are dead. It's a sad thing to say, but it's true. Maybe so we'll see the truth. I'm not afraid. Maybe I should be. Ah, she's leaving me, isn't she? Maybe I can tell her I'm disappointed in that by putting a little pressure on her. Told you she's fresh. She's only quiet because I'm being quiet. me. Remember how I blocked her a minute ago to find that stop? Maybe so I'll block her. I just want that eye. If I can get that eye, I'll call it good. Ah. That's the truth. She can be who she is and be with me. That's the truth. That's her telling me the truth. I haven't took the life out of her. So when she came up to me and reared up like that, all happier than a pig to see me, the last thing in the world that I would do is be mean with her. I want to reward it when she comes up to me. Because she's going to have to be with me her whole life. Or somebody. Ah. When a horse backs up, they're going down the pecking order. If you can get a horse to give ground without being evil, they're not backing up because they have to. They're backing up because they choose to. There is a difference. Okay? I'll make her go the other way. And I'm going to make her go the other way by looking at me. Just horses. Now maybe so I'll let her play for a minute. I like that. That's cool. She's got every bit of life God gave her still in her. Now maybe I'll ask her to come up and spend some time with me. That's her choice. I'd like this side a little better because she didn't come clear up to me. But it's a start. There. So maybe if I was going to catch her out in the pasture, before you can work with him, you got to catch him, don't you? I'm not going to hide none of this stuff. I'm going to tell them straight up what I got going on. But I expect that from them too. So maybe if I was going to catch this little filly, I'd walk up here and get her eye. Now maybe when she can settle down and focus, I have to have the eye before I can get the horse, but I never catch the head, I always catch the hip. Now she jumped and kicked. I was smart enough not to get kicked. I expect all of you guys are smart enough not to get kicked. That's just her telling me that she's feeling good. Why in the world would I hit her for that or yell at her or chase her? I want that so I'll have something to work with. Now maybe I'll leave her, but it was my choice. These are all groundwork. She's real curious about her environment. I want to let that mind go away so that I can practice bringing her mind back to me. And I might do this in the pasture before we ever start doing anything. And if you're not patient, this can be real frustrating. Remember that stay with me? Just because you have a line on don't mean your horse is right. If you stop, they stop. And if you back up, they back up. I had to help her. But it's the beginning. She didn't run off. Don't take away their curiosity. I worked for a horse trader in California, and my job was to head and tail 2 horses together every day. I trotted 5 miles. I stopped at his pens and I swapped the 2 horses and I trotted home. I did that every day for 6 months before the guy ever talked to me. And then a year later, I found out his name was Bill Dorrance. And then 20 years later, I found out that he was important. That's how ignorant and slow my life's been. Why should I expect my horses to be faster than that? I wish I could talk to him again. There's other questions I'd ask him besides, don't you have cool lemonade for me to drink? But he probably waited 6 months to talk to me because he was trying to make up his mind whether I was going to live long enough to waste words on it. And once again, that horse was jumping and kicking and bucking, and I'm almost done here. What I'm trying to show you guys is the best part of this horse's day is being with me. She jumped and kicked and ran around. Ah, she's letting me in, isn't she? Ah. Just horses. Remember that. There. Don't be mad at her for doing what she just did. I was probably being rude. If my skills were better, maybe she wouldn't have took it that way. Now, if that become a pattern of behavior, I would correct it in a heartbeat. You know what I'm talking about. But when they're just being ignorant, take the time to teach the ignorance out of them. You can't beat ignorance out of them, you have to educate it. And all the rest of that stuff, you can knock it out of them with a fence post. But you have to make sure that they know what you're asking before you go to the next step. You have absolutely got to make sure that these horses know what you're asking. There. Nice and soft. No kicking. Move that hip. No kicking. So that tells me that maybe that was my fault. Maybe. I'm not going to tell you that I am a carrot feeder and I don't spot them, because I darn sure will. You have to be the leader. Evidently, it was my fault. And if I'd have hit that horse for that, I would have destroyed something that I built. No place for pulling in this deal. Just stay soft and work with them. I hope that helped you. I'm out of time, aren't I? Oh, I'm not?
You have 15 minutes.
Huh?
15!
Oh, I have 15 minutes? Oh, hell. Remember when we make a move, we always find something to do with them to let them stand still? So maybe so. I might want to put the reins over her head someday. All of this stuff's important to your groundwork. All of this stuff. Here's me bridling this horse. I do this with all the babies. Now, she dropped her face, I took my fingers out. Oh! We'll wait for her. Evidently, though, I used the wrong kind of soap today. But here I put the bit in her mouth. Now, when she drops in here and gets soft, I want a little bit more give. I'll take my bit out. When a horse lets you in their mouth, they've also let you in their mind. I know that might sound redundant to you, but before you can show a horse anything, you have to let them in, or they have to let you in. This is a good place to start. Don't ignore these chances to teach. There, she dropped her nose, I took the bit out. Remember how we worked with this horse to stay with us when we back up? Maybe I'll add a little bit pressure and see if I can get her to to back up. I've never tried this. No reason why not. But I have. Maybe she'll back her up with my fingers. There, that's good enough. She dropped her head and took a step back. That's a bit. She's never had anything on her except a hack mark. Another thing that you might do with these babies, if they're not really waiting on you too much, another thing you can do with them to teach them to wait on you is maybe, this is a thing I stole from Ray, maybe just have her give me that foot. And set it down. Maybe have her give me this foot. Try not to pull on your halter. And set it down. Set it down. Maybe if I wait on this horse until she gives me the right response, I can get her to start giving me other body parts and be with me. It's all about being with me, being soft, quiet, and relaxed. She's not liking that. She doesn't know, but they're just horses. Just hold her. When she reaches, give back. And then she's got to balance herself. Hold it. Wait for her. This might come in handy if they step in the fence, but more than that, it's making her feel of me. When that foot's up in the air, I can manipulate where it lands, can't I? Same way if you were riding, you could never move that left foot if it wasn't in the air. If it's stuck in the ground and you want her to go to the left, you better wait. So I'm teaching this horse that I can manipulate that leg. When I take the pressure off, she stops. All of these things are the same. You set up situations. You make the situations so that they can achieve success. Don't set her up to do a pee off if she doesn't know how to collect and sit on her haunches. Always go step by step, wait for them, and only ask them to do the things they're ready to do next. I want her to follow that feel, and I'll wait. There's pressure on her face already. Why should I firm up and jerk her front end around? When actually what I want her to do is figure out what that feel means, and there it is. She figured that out on her own. So maybe next time when I ride her, I can put that feel on and sit over here on this side. She won't come to me. She'll go where the feel tells her to go. If all you teach them how to do is come to you and not follow the feel, you're creating a monster. Alright? There's feel. Let her find it. Reward her by bringing her to me. Has to be her choice. Thank you, Kate. All of these things gets these horses this way. No matter what it is that you're trying to teach them, no matter what. If you're trying, the sky's the limit. If you can teach them that if they're with you, it's all good. You're not going to take the life out of them and you're going to stay soft. On the ground, I learn to be with them and then I modify that behavior. When I ride them, I learn to be with them and then I modify the behavior. The most important thing when you're working with these babies or with an older horse, before you start pulling on them and kicking on them, be with them. And then the things that don't feel good to you, you can change. That's the way Bill Lawrence rode horses clear up until he was 90. He'd climb on a horse and he'd just go where the horse wanted to go for a minute so he could be with his horse. And after he was with his horse, he could modify the behavior. So if I'm with this little horse on the ground and I modify it, tomorrow, what I'm going to do tomorrow is show you how this groundwork is the same as my saddle. I'm going to do these exercises and then do them horseback. This line. And if that makes sense to you guys, good luck down the line. As far as teaching this stuff, I have a bunch of videos on YouTube at Equine Kindergarten. You can go watch, don't cost nothing. And you can always message me if you have a question, or even call me. We do a lot of clinics, give a lot of private lessons. If this looks good to you and appeals to you, get a hold of me sometime.